everyone. This is Katarina O'Mara.
And this is Brenna Pellizzoni.
And we're back on the Kat and Brenna Talk Show.
Today, we are going to be taking a look back to the progressive era, and of course, some of the most popular songs that were inspired by the movement. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the progressive movement, Kat?
Of course. The progressive movement was a part of an era in the early 20th century where people started to challenge traditional practices and views. There were many reforms created in an attempt to change American society for the better.
Well, don't forget that it was only better to some people. I'm sure others didn't agree with everything that was being done.
Well, yes, the progressive movement did have reforms that had both liberal and conservative ideas, so I'm sure they didn't always agree.
Wow, so both Democrats and Republicans contributed to the movement? Even though they had contradicting ideas?
Yep. There were a lot of political, social, and economic reforms during this time. Do you know why these reforms were needed? Do you know what was done to solve the political, social, and economic problems, and why the reforms would even work?
Well, change was needed during the progressive era in political, social, and economic areas because the government was corrupt in multiple ways, workers were mistreated, and education was disorganized, and some businesses were overly powerful. Some political reforms that could have been made were the 19th Amendment, which would establish a pure vote and reduce government corruption, the 17th Amendment, which would give more power to the people over who represented them in government, and initiative and referendum, which would expand the people's say in the government.
Actually, now that I think of it, social reforms that should have been made were the workmen's compensation, which would ensure businesses would be safer for workers, the Key to Go Act, to reduce child labor and allow them to get an education, and economic reforms that should have been made were creating the Federal Trade Commission to oversee what businesses did, and the Clayton Act to keep businesses in check by prohibiting unfair trade practices, and the Hepburn Act to give more power to the Interstate Commerce Commission instead of railroads.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it could be right. We seem to have some good ideas, but maybe our progressive songwriters can help us out a little. They did live in that era after all.
That's true. Let's play these songs.
Big businessmen have power, get to their heads. Oh, small businesses are crushed. We cannot let unfair practice spread. We gotta get our message across. Trust busting, get rid of corporate trust. We're adjusting, the businesses are unjust. Railroad companies raise are unfair. Farmers are being charged more.
on these songs, I would say that the political reforms like the 19th and 17th Amendments and initiative and referendum were needed to reduce government corruption and give the people more power. And it really worked, since it created a purer vote and gave people more of a say in the government.
Yeah, the social reforms, such as the Workers' Compensation and the Keating-Owen Act, were needed to ensure that workers would be treated better and education would be more accessible. These also worked since working conditions did get better and more people were able to go to school and get educated.
The economic reforms, like the Clayton Act and the Hepburn Act, as well as creating the Federal Trade Commission, were necessary because they kept the big businesses in check, which worked because it allowed for more equal competition between businesses, which is good for the economy.
I think I really understand the progressive movement and its reforms now.
I think the progressive movement was good for American society, and it helped to shape America into its current state by creating reforms that set precedents within the different facets of American society that are still relevant today.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Well, that's all we have for you today, folks. Thanks for tuning in.